After my father's funeral, I made a decision that weighed heavily on me. I would divide his $3 million inheritance between my mother and myself. The moment felt like the calm after a storm, until Jack opened his mouth. He had been skimming through the inheritance documents, without so much as a thought for my grief. "Kelly, don't be too greedy." "Oh, this is perfect. Finally, I can quit my job. I really owe that doddering old man," he said, grinning. "Doddering old man?" The words escaped before I could stop them. "Are you talking about my father?" Jack barely glanced up from the paperwork, while my mother-in-law eagerly joined in the conversation, already discussing their plans to buy a new car and shop till they dropped. Their nonchalance was like a slap across my face, but it was the disrespect toward my father that made something inside me snap. The weight of the past few days, grieving my father, carrying the burden of household chores, being asked for money, and now this, became too much to bear. I felt my chest tighten, my anger building to a breaking point, but I swallowed it down, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. "Sure," I said, my voice betraying none of the storm inside me. "Use the money however you like. I am Kelly Cohan, 38, a housewife with a career in pharmaceuticals, living alongside my husband, Jack. My parents were doctors, well known in our town for their clinic. As an only child, I grew up in a home full of love and expectations. After finishing pharmacy school, I landed a job at a top pharmaceutical company, much to my parents' disappointment that I didn't follow in their medical footsteps, but they respected my decision. Then came the tragedy. My mother died in a car accident, leaving my father and me shattered. Jack, who had been my boyfriend for only a year, was there for me through it all. He was a kind and dependable man. 2 years after my mother's death, he proposed. I thought we would be happy, that our love could withstand anything. Jack was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry, nothing extraordinary about him, but I believed that together, we could overcome anything. My father, though, was thrilled when we got engaged. "I've seen how Jack has been there for you. Kelly, please take care of her," he told him. Jack stood tall, his voice firm. "I will make her happy," and in that moment, I believed him. Our first meeting with Jack's family was less than reassuring. His mother, flashy and loud, looked me up and down with a critical eye. "Marriage, huh? She's your choice? Aren't you settling a bit? She's older and, well, plain, don't you think? A younger, prettier girl would have been better for you." I was stunned, but Jack didn't hesitate. "Mom, Kelly works for M Pharmaceuticals, and her father runs his own practice," he said, a defensive edge to his voice. He never once spoke about my character, but instead focused on the material advantages I brought to the table. His mother's attitude shifted immediately. "Oh, Jack, why didn't you tell me all this sooner?" "Well, that changes everything. I approve now. Nice to meet you, Kelly." Jack was overjoyed by her approval, but my unease lingered. The doubts began creeping in. Soon after, when Jack and I went to register our marriage, my father gifted me an apartment in a luxury building in New York City. "This is for you," he said. "Start your new life here." I told Jack, "Dad gave us this apartment as a wedding gift. Let's make it our home." He smiled and nodded, and so, our married life began. But it didn't take long for me to realize something was off. Jack, who had lived with his parents his entire life, had no idea how to run a household. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use the washing machine, and left his messes everywhere. I, on the other hand, was juggling a career and all the household duties, thinking I could handle it. The first year of marriage, I tried to do everything, thinking it was part of the honeymoon phase, but by the second year, I had reached my limit. I sat Jack down, finally voicing my frustrations. "We need to share the responsibilities," I told him. His response, however, was far from what I expected. "I'm tired from work too. You're better at it anyway, just handle it." "I'm not good at this stuff," he said, dismissing me completely. And just like that, I became the sole caretaker of our home. But that wasn't the only issue. Jack's mother, always demanding, made it clear she had no interest in anything less than perfection. For Mother's Day, I decided to send her a thoughtful gift, an elegant scarf and fresh carnations. But when she received it, she called me in a rage. "This scarf is from a no-name brand. Do you expect me to wear this trash? You should have gotten something from a luxury brand," she snapped. I tried to explain that it was of high quality, but she wouldn't listen. Instead, she demanded only top-tier brands, throwing my thoughtful gesture back in my face. I reported this to Jack, hoping for some understanding, but instead, he shrugged it off. "Just do as she says. It's not that big of a deal." From that point on, we were expected to give her cash whenever she wanted something, no more gifts, just money. And by our 5th year of marriage, well, that's when the real trouble started. As the years went by, Jack's mother began visiting our home more frequently, always finding new reasons to ask for money. Jack, without hesitation, would smile and hand her whatever she requested. Even though I worked, Jack's income was modest, and our day-to-day life barely managed to stay afloat. In a desperate bid to cut costs, I started dipping into our savings, trying to keep things from spiraling out of control. Despite my frustrations, I continued to endure it. I knew Jack cherished his mother. She had supported me through some of the toughest times in my life. I kept telling myself, she's the mother of someone important to me. But by the 8th year of our marriage, I had become the sole caretaker of the house and the one who continued to fund my mother-in-law's whims. Then, out of the blue, my father, whom I hadn't seen in months, called me. When we finally met, the story he shared was a shocking blow. He was suffering from terminal cancer, and there was nothing more the doctors could do. The world tilted beneath me as my father, ever calm, gently stroked my head like he had when I was a child. "Kelly, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly," he said. I was stunned, tears spilling down my face. "Dad. Why, even you?" My life became an exhausting balancing act between work, household chores, and now caring for my father. My job was flexible, but managing everything else was overwhelming. I told Jack that I would be spending more time at the hospital, but his response was distant, as if this sudden crisis didn't concern him. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," he said. That was all. He visited my father in the hospital only once. I became so consumed with my father's care that I no longer had time or energy to focus on Jack. If there was any attention left to give, it was to my father. One day, as I sat beside my father's hospital bed, he asked, his voice quiet but sharp, "How's your marriage with Jack going?" His question caught me off guard. I thought of Jack's indifference at home, his refusal to help, and his mother's constant demands. My father must have seen my hesitation, because his next words were gentle, yet firm. "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." Tears blurred my vision, and I wept freely as my father held my hand, his calm presence the only anchor in my storm. 3 months later, the inevitable came. My father passed away peacefully. Devastated, I threw myself into funeral arrangements, but once again, Jack showed no interest. He offered no support, no compassion. He simply wasn't there. Friends, family, and acquaintances attended the funeral, paying their respects, but Jack and his mother barely seemed to care. After the funeral, I received a call from my father's lawyer, informing me about the inheritance. I arranged to meet him and listened as he explained the details, each word more surprising than the last. After taxes, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. Not only had he earned a steady income as a doctor, but he had also made savvy investments in real estate. I was left with a fortune. His legacy, the shock of it, mixed with the overwhelming sense of responsibility, left me feeling dizzy. When I got home, I spread the inheritance documents across my desk, trying to absorb the enormity of it all, but exhaustion overtook me, and I dozed off on the sofa. When I awoke, I heard the excited chatter of Jack and his mother in the next room. "Jack, Mother, when did you get here?" I asked, confused. Jack approached me with a wide grin. "Well done, Kelly, you did it." I blinked, utterly perplexed. "What? Why are you so happy?" Jack's smile widened as he waved the inheritance papers in front of me. My heart sank. "Wait, you've been looking through those without asking?" I snapped, feeling a mixture of betrayal and anger rising inside me. Unfazed, my mother-in-law cheerfully added, "Wow, $3 million? This is amazing. Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." The words hit me like a punch. My mother-in-law's sudden joy made no sense. Jack, without missing a beat, said, "I've made a decision about the inheritance. I'm splitting it between me and my mom." The weight of his words landed like a cold slap. Right after my father's funeral, Jack, having read the documents without my permission, casually declared, "Don't be greedy, Kelly. Finally, I can quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man." "Doddering old man?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Are you talking about my father?" Jack barely registered my shock. "Let's just get the inheritance into our joint account as soon as possible," he said, dismissing my anger with an indifference that felt like a betrayal. In that moment, Everything I had endured, the exhaustion, the sacrifices, the silent suffering, seemed to crash down around me. This was no longer just about money, it was about something much deeper. Jack and my mother-in-law were giddy with excitement, already discussing plans to buy a new car and go on lavish shopping sprees. Every word they spoke felt like an insult to the memory of my father, and I could feel my temper rising, the weight of household chores, their constant demands for money, and now this, hearing them speak so casually about spending my inheritance, was too much to bear. Suppressing the anger that threatened to erupt, I forced a smile and said, "Sure, use the money however you and mother see fit. Please, do as you wish." My mother-in-law beamed at my response, seemingly satisfied. "That's the spirit, Kelly, you're so quick to agree. Now, keep working hard, alright? We don't want our savings to dwindle, so make sure you're bringing in money." I nodded, pretending to listen as her words became more selfish, more insistent. After that, it was as if they had lost all sense of reality. Jack quit his job without a second thought, and my mother-in-law practically moved in, staying at our house constantly. Every day, they would leave in the morning and return with shopping bags full of luxury brand items. "The three-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected," Jack would say with a hint of superiority. "Yes, it was a bit underwhelming for us refined people," his mother would reply, echoing his pretentious tone. Their conversations were like something out of a poorly written reality TV show, rich, entitled, and oblivious to the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, I was stuck handling every household chore, all while they acted as though I was their personal maid. Jack assumed that my father's inheritance would come through at any moment, and he had no qualms about withdrawing money from our joint account, rapidly depleting our savings by $100,000. When I confronted him about their reckless spending, Jack laughed it off. "Why are you so worried? Isn't $3 million coming soon? Spending like this is no big deal," he said flippantly. "I've already stopped the inheritance process," I told him firmly, but he didn't even seem to hear me. A month later, Jack and my mother-in-law left for a trip to Hawaii, without so much as inviting me. I was left alone at home. After seeing them off, something inside me snapped. It was time to take control. A week later, as I relaxed at home, I heard a loud knock at the door. I checked the intercom and saw Jack and his mother, dressed in their bright aloha shirts, standing on the other side. What do you want?" I asked through the intercom, keeping my voice calm. Jack's voice rang out angrily. "What are you talking about? Why won't the door open?" I couldn't help but smile to myself. "Well, I changed the locks, so of course, it won't open." "What? Why?" Jack shouted, his confusion mounting. "I think we should talk this through calmly at a nearby cafe." "Go ahead, I'll join you shortly," I suggested, my voice unwavering. After a few more minutes of shouting, they finally gave up and left for the cafe. I waited until they were gone, then followed them there. When I arrived, Jack and his mother were already there, fuming. "Kelly, what's this about? Did you really change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now," Jack demanded. "There's no need for me to give you the new keys, you both need to leave the house," I said quietly but firmly. Jack's face twisted with fury as I calmly slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a divorce petition, already filled out and ready to go. "Divorce? You're serious about this?" Jack stammered, his eyes wide in disbelief. His mother, equally shocked, stared at me. "Kelly, why has it come to this?" I didn't flinch. "By the way, with all the lavish spending you've been doing, are you sure your finances are in good shape?" Jack spat back angrily. "What are you talking about? Of course, it's fine. Your father's inheritance is coming soon, right? There's still over $50,000 in our joint account. Let me show you." He pulled out his phone and opened the banking app, but the look on his face shifted dramatically when he saw the balance. What's this? Where did the money go? It was there just yesterday," he yelled, his panic rising. His mother scrambled to check her phone, her confusion mirroring his. I smiled grimly. "Of course it's gone. I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division. I'm divorcing you." "What? What do you mean?" Jack's face flushed with anger, but it quickly turned into a smirk. "Fine," he sneered. "If you're divorcing me, then give me the inheritance your father left you. Property acquired during the marriage is split half and half, right?" I looked at him, calm and unyielding. "You might be misunderstanding something. Didn't you know? The inheritance I received, despite it being during our marriage, doesn't count as property division." A stunned silence fell over the table. Jack's eyes widened. and his mother's mouth hung open in disbelief. "Check it for yourself," I said, a mocking tone creeping into my voice. Jack scrambled to search for the legal details on his phone. His face paled as he read aloud. "It says here, property inherited from a parent is considered separate property. It's not subject to division and can't be split between spouses." "What? No way." His mother's voice wavered in shock. Jack's desperation became palpable as he began pleading. "Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live without you?" "What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions," I said, my voice steady. "I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you, and if I have to, I'll go to court." Jack and his mother, shaken by my newfound strength, could only shrink back, their arrogance deflated. I stood up and walked out of the cafe, leaving them behind. The divorce process went smoothly. The $50,000 I had transferred was recognized as part of the marital property division, and I was able to get Jack and his mother out of my life for good. Jack, having already blown through the money, found himself drowning in debt. His extravagant spending had caught up with him, and he was left with nothing but bills from his overseas trip and credit card debt. Jack and his mother now live in a shabby apartment, working endlessly to pay off their debts. As for me, I sold the condo I once shared with Jack and moved into the apartment my father had left me. With the inheritance I received, I now live comfortably, focusing on my own happiness. I'm starting anew, grateful for my father's legacy and finally at peace.